The phenomenologist, psychoanalyst, existentialist, and other scholars study and analyze how the concept of self affects the development and change of individuals and societies. Examination of alienation or lack of identity in modern culture and economy is one of the main themes of their research. Through concepts such as philosophies of the subject or inner self, they seek to understand the nature of the self and how it relates to events in the external world. The idea that the search for true self is a fundamental part of the human experience underscores their belief in the importance of personal development amid modern civilization. However, in the 1950s, a different perspective emerged in philosophy, viewing culture and language as sources of self-identity rather than self-identity as the source of culture and language. This means that to investigate meanings, ideas, and anything worth investigating, it is not determined by the inner self, experience, authenticity, or the true self, but through culture and language, a public reality of science. Therefore, this marks a significant shift in self-examination, but to understand this, it is necessary to understand those who initiated this switch. In this so-called switch, Ernst Cassirer, one of the important German philosophers of culture in the 20th century, developed a neo-Kantian philosophy of culture. In his 3-volume work, Philosophy of Symbolic Forms, Cassirer believed in Immanuel Kant's critical idealism, the belief that the human mind shapes its experiences through concepts and ideas. For example, time, space, and causality for Kant, these are not just things in the world, but the way the human mind organizes its experience that Cassirer tried to apply in a historical context, shaping his neo-Kantianism perspective. For him, humans are animal symbolicum, or the symbolic animal. Here, we construct the world not through transcendental machinery or the human ability to pre-organize experience as information, but through symbols or signs. And these symbols are linguistic, artistic, historical, mythical, religious, mathematical, and of course, scientific. Furthermore, for Cassirer, Kantian construction of basic experiences of the world is not subjectively or purely a creation of the mind, but an active and public creation of humans in our various cultural media. For instance, when painters paint a particular historical period, they influence and construct a way to understand it, such as understanding space. Therefore, language plays a significant role in determining experience, where in the way we experience the world, it is pre-organized by the language we use. It is also like understanding myth and religion as well as science. In fact, science for Cassirer is just a form of symbolism. It shows that our symbolic understanding of the world changes over time, from being hunter-gatherers to the emergence of early agrarian societies and the development of culture from ancient medieval to modern times. And in each stage of these times, cultural media is the way to shape and experience our own world. Thus, in Cassirer's spirit, the application of social media, for example like Facebook, is a form of symbolism where trends, memes, posts, and anything included here are ways to understand our own world. For example, the evolution of memes on the internet, from funny cat memes being sarcastic to nihilistic and more edgy or absurd content, show changes in our symbolic understanding of the world. In addition to Cassirer's theory, after the Second World War, a new theory called hermeneutics emerged. It refers to the 19th century scientific method of interpreting text pioneered by Hans-Georg Gadamer, influenced by the famous German philosopher Martin Heidegger. For Gadamer, our minds always engage in artifacts and documents left to us by the past. Our language itself collects history. Each term carries its uses from the past. For example, the terms found in the dictionary used in everyday life have been used in various ways for thousands of years. Therefore, according to Gadamer, each term carries its past and has become part of its meaning. Here, Gadamer approached Heidegger's concept that understanding is always preceded by the horizon or context of meanings that we release in our experience. According to Heidegger, humans perform projection or understanding things based on its connection to many possibilities in the future. And for Gadamer, this means in each use of the terms, we are bringing back and carrying a whole historical tradition by giving meaning to things around us. This is what Gadamer calls fusion of horizons, or the projection or understanding of current experiences through terms from the past that carry a long history of their use. In this way, Gadamer's fusion of horizons demonstrates how a particular cultural artifact, such as internet memes, changes and evolves over times and contexts, adding new layers of meaning and interpretation to the original concept. This shows the long historical tradition of internet memes by giving meaning to things around us. Therefore, for Gadamer, in his book Truth and Method in 1960, our inclusion in history itself gives us access to understanding it. This means that the objectivity claimed by science through a neutral understanding of history is not true, because our inclusion in history itself gives us the ability to understand it and have a dialogue in the text being read. Therefore, the bias or inclination towards something being analyzed does not mean it is unjust or meaningless. Rather, it gives a legitimate access or way to understand the text being read. Thus, Gadamer's fusion of horizons means that our current interpretive horizon must have a fusion or connection to the interpretive horizon of the document or artifact from the past. Therefore, in analyzing texts from the past, we are included in history. We form a fusion or connection to our modern perspectives from ancient perspectives found in the text or artifact from the past. For example, the study of social science by a social scientist may be considered as bias or inclination towards the tradition of social science as a lens of analysis. However, in Gadamer's perspective or spirit, the inclusion of a social scientist in the tradition of social science gives him access to understanding it appropriately. This means, for Gadamer, every field of science has its methods that give them enough capability because of their inclusion in that particular tradition. Now, in performing interpretation, according to Gadamer, analysis is a literal engagement with the past. However, the most influential method of understanding cultural media is structuralism, introduced by Ferdinand de Saussure, a French linguist. Where here, Saussure divided language or langue and parole or speech, where he did not consider the use of language but its system of symbols or signs, or the langue. According to him, the sign is arbitrary, that each sign or word is purely conventional in its relation to what it denotes. Therefore, language is conventional and dependent on its time. This clarifies the concept that words are formed because the sound of the word expresses its particular thing. According to Saussure, there is no inherent connection between the sign and the appearance of what it denotes, such as using the word tree to describe a tree with many branches and leaves. From here, Saussure emphasized the signifier and signified. Here, the signifier refers only to a word like tree, while the signified is not an external thing but a concept. For example, the word child in the phrase my child is an example of a signifier that does not refer to my actual child, but to the concept of the speaker's child. Therefore, the signifier refers to words while the signified is not found in the world but only in concepts, or it's just conceptual. Now, Saussure crucially pointed out, as the basis of structuralism, the meanings of signifiers are determined by differences or relations between signifiers in a system of signs, where each sign carries its definition in relation to other signs. Because for Saussure, in language, there are only differences. Here it is stated that the meaning of each term is determined by the meaning of such a term and other related terms in a particular language. This means, for example, that the meaning of the word tree is determined by its relation to the word nature, and the word nature to tree, and tree to the word stem, and stem to the word leaf, and the leaf to the word forest, and the forest to the word plant. Therefore, Saussure examines the system of signs where words only have meaning because they are contained within a system of signs. However, unlike Gadamer's hermeneutics, which considers the history or meaning of an artifact or document that gives us access to its meaning, the fusion of horizons, Saussure states here that the meaning of a word does not come from its history, where it was invented or originated, and also the meaning of a word between it and the actual thing it refers to. So it does not determine the meaning. Therefore, what determines the meaning, for Saussure, is the relationship of one word to other words. Therefore, language is part of a wide web or system of words. As a result, structuralism has influenced subsequent theorists and applied to various fields of social science, like Jacques Lacan, a French psychoanalyst who applied structuralism to Freud's psychoanalysis. According to him, the structure of the unconscious is like language. In his view, the unconscious is composed of symbols and signs that need to be understood to understand the meaning of a person's experiences and emotions. Lacan used concepts from Saussure's structuralism to show that the symbols and signs in a language contain meanings based on relationships between words. For example, in Lacan's mirror stage, infants between the ages of 6 and 18 months go through a stage where they see their own image in the mirror and learn the concept of self-recognition as a separate individual. Through understanding themselves, the concept of I or self is formed, with associated relationships with other people. Through this process, Lacan shows how the structure of language is related to the meaning of self-recognition. On the other hand, Louis Althusser, a French theorist, applied structuralism to Marxist theory, where the analysis of capitalism should not only be historical, but also focused on the structure of language, because Marx talks about historical materialism. Althusser's concept of ideological state apparatuses, or ISA, shows his translation of structuralism into Marxism. In his view, capitalist society has institutions such as the church, school, media, and others, which teach and reinforce the ideology of the system. These institutions provide people with ideas and beliefs that align with the capitalist system of production and control. For example, in school, students are taught not only academic concepts, but also given lessons and beliefs that align with the needs of society, capitalism. For example, the education system may teach students the importance of individual success, competition, and effort to succeed in life. These ideas strengthen the capitalist system that promotes individualism and effort to develop the economy.
Mr. Grimes, mathematics teacher, is displeased with the progress of his 9th grade class in mathematics.
You see what low grade you made on your weekly mathematics test. More than half of you failed. Most of those who passed just got by. Nobody had 100%. This is the poorest class I've had in a long, long time. Most of you have no foundation at all. Now, the trouble's with your attitude. You don't pay enough attention in class. You don't do enough work outside of it. You don't know what the word study means. You haven't the slightest idea. Don't you realize that mathematics is an important subject? I tell you right now that unless you get over your lazy habits and come up to the standards I've set for this class, many of you will have the pleasure of repeating this course next semester.
Furthermore, one of the influential studies of structuralism was done by the anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss. Lévi-Strauss analyzed the meaning of artifacts and customs in non-Western societies using structuralism. In his analysis, Strauss discussed the significance and meaning of an artifact in a particular culture. To do this, it is necessary to examine the relationship between it and the entire series of other things, customs, and the concepts it represents within a system that dictates the meaning of an event, custom, or artifact. For example, in Strauss's analysis of the mythology of the Cadaveo tribe in Brazil, he studied the stories of the tribe, such as the story of the creation of animals and plants, and showed how they were based on concepts of opposition and connection. Through the analysis of patterns and relationships within the stories, he discovered the system and structure of the Cadaveo's recognition of nature. In this way, he was able to show the importance of analyzing cultural systems and beliefs within a society. Because of structuralism, it emphasizes the importance of morals rather than as a product of its environment. For example, American behaviorist psychologist B.F. Skinner believed that humans only respond to their physical environment and produce products through the stimulus-response relationship. However, structuralism focuses on the meaning of words and how they form structures in the human mind as part of public science, which in fact do not originate solely from the human mind, but rather are part of the culture in which a person belongs. If the idea of structuralism is pushed to its limits, it implies that the meanings in our minds, our thoughts and beliefs, as well as actions and behaviors, do not depend on what the self contains, soul, experience, or true self. Instead, these are merely expressions of a cultural world of rules and structures that we are subject to. But this does not mean that it originates from us. Therefore, meaning does not originate from the self, but the self is shaped by the system of science. This also means that authenticity or true self is a big romantic idea, a true self with meaning or value, so there is no true you. Here, the proponents of post-structuralism emerged, where they embraced structuralism but pushed by theorists in a more distant direction, with its leader being Jacques Derrida. With this change, the structuralist proponents of structuralism attempted to reconcile structuralist procedures and rules within the human sciences, where for them, these sciences are only part of the structure of science whose meaning originates only from its difference with others. This means that the method of structuralism used to analyze subjects in human sciences based on the structure of science is also part of the structure of science that post-structuralists are trying to study. Therefore, they want to criticize structuralism using structuralism. Here, this is the main question of post-structuralism. What if everything written by all people, like sociology, anthropology, or philosophy, aims to understand itself using structuralist analysis? To answer this big question, and Jacques Derrida's response, he turned to what is called semiosis, or refers to sign using, or the study of signs. Here, Derrida accepts Saussure's semiotic statement that signs are arbitrary, where signs are determined by what is conventional or acceptable in society and not from its history or origin and from the external world. In addition, for Derrida, signs are exterior or material and not just mental. This means that signs are sounds or marks on a page. Because when we say sign, for Derrida it refers to words spoken by people, their statements or propositions, and any type of sign like images that do not refer to ideas within a person's mind. Where here, each sign must be repeatable and identifiable in its relation to other signs. For example, using the word tree on two different occasions must have a clear distinction that the same sign or word is still used. However, for Derrida, signs and their meanings are both part of diachronic and temporal series of sign appearances, and the synchronic or simultaneous pattern of interconnected signs in a particular language. And the representation depends on the meaning of the sign, where the meaning of signs is relative to this combination of present signs and absent signs. This means that when the word marriage is used, this word can be said to exist in two different lines. First, the historical use of the word marriage by ourselves, by other people, and the people within our own culture, and the meaning of this word is formed from the meaning of other related words, and the words used in the past or the history of its usage. This is the diachronic line. However, structuralists also believe that this word is within the scope of other words found in the dictionary, such as the words spouse, child, relationship, and others. This is the synchronic line referring to its structural location in the language. Here, the point is, the meaning of a sign is subject to constitution in a diachronic and synchronic manner, which means it is relative to all uses of a particular sign. Therefore, the meaning of a sign according to Derrida is deferred or differs, and the meaning refers and is relative to the past use of a sign, its past usage context, and the non-present relationship of signs in the language. This means that the reference of a sign to non-present signs constitutes the meaning of the sign. Now, this is a unique line of thought, but it is not a unique belief. For example, again, the word marriage only had meaning because of its relationship to many related words. But these words that gave meaning of a word are not spoken or pronounced currently, so these are non-present signs. Therefore, the word marriage would lose its meaning without its relationship to the words that are absent. Furthermore, the word would also lose its meaning without its history, which is currently also absent or without presence and non-present or not pronounced at present. This means that each word has a hidden shadow, related words that give us meaning. Therefore, a word only gained meaning because of the many non-present words that give meaning to other non-present words. Therefore, every sign implies other signs. Furthermore, for Derrida, the meaning of a sign always refers to other signs. This means that one sign gives birth to many more signs. For example, if we want to understand the meaning of a linguistic sign, we look in a dictionary. And what we get from flipping through a dictionary is more signs. And if we don't understand its meaning, we search again and receive even more signs. Therefore, signs continuously create more signs, and this is relative to the sign they create, where each sign is a sign of other signs. As a result, for Derrida, signs are polysemic, or exhaustive, and endless with an uncertain vast number of meanings. For example, again, the word marriage, in every dictionary we use, every legal document, every joke we hear, all variants of the meanings of this word, Derrida states that when we use the word marriage and to express its meaning, we need to mention all other uses of it, where all of these play a role in using a word. Nevertheless, there is no reason to privilege the myriad meanings of a sign as its sole meaning, because the meaning of a sign itself refers to the meaning of the countless and endless collection of other meanings. According to Derrida, the meaning of a sign is incomplete without representation in all signs. Here it can be said that no word can do this. So for Derrida, the endless meaning of a sign is non-present or not used at present and implicit. This is because speakers cannot provide the final purpose of theories, which is a direct contact between the user of the sign and the object or referent or meaning of the sign they use. This means that Derrida literally declares that he does not know the meaning of what he is saying. We have no ability to understand it because the meaning of a sign refers to other signs. It does not come from our mind, expectations, or any desired meaning. It comes from the actual meaning of words with their own history as part of the synchronic arrangement of signs, because all these things must be explained to say the meaning of a sign. Moreover, this means or implies that every time we use signs, our signs create countless meanings despite the clear meaning we want to express. Therefore, the creation of numerous meanings is beyond our control because the generative nature of language, where the use of one sign creates even more signs ad infinitum. Therefore, we cannot encapsulate all the meanings of a common sign used by humans. Nevertheless, in our participation in communication, we need to suppress meanings that we do not want to express. Here, the user of the sign is literally participating in the game of attempting to repress meanings, which means every statement is a lie for Derrida. This is because with every use of a word, we must pretend that there is no complexity in all the statements we make, that we pretend that what we say is direct, simple, and immediately understood, which for Derrida is never true. Nevertheless, the final or ultimate conclusion of this procedure by Derrida is every presentation is a presupposition of representation, where all our contact with the world, all our sensations, perceptions, and cognition are presuppositions of signs, because all cognitive operations are related to signs. Here, we have no immediate cognition of the presence of objects that do not use concepts or words. Everything is under the operation of signs. For example, it can be said that we see the floor, feel and perceive it. But in this example, Derrida does not deny the existence of the floor. However, he states that everything we think about the floor is imbued or choked by a sign, concept, and word through representation. Because by simply calling the floor, floor, we are using a word. Because if we try to describe anything without using concepts or words, there is none. This means that every experience of the human mind, because the mind operates through signs, everything is under the mediation of signs. If we accept this analysis, all perceptions and knowledge are determined and are under the infection of generative polysemia or endless meanings and non-present signs. This is what Derrida means in his popular saying, "There's nothing outside the text." This does not mean that there is no reality outside of books or statements, but it means that there is nothing else outside the context, meaning there is no experience or contact that is outside the context where signs are part of this context, such as language and signs used by people to communicate with each other. Therefore, for us, there is nothing if there are no signs, because he does not assert that signs cover everything, but there is nothing if there are no signs. In addition to Derrida's theory of signs, his main goal is to apply all his insights in a particular mode of communication, none other than writing, particularly in theory or philosophy. That is because writing embodies all the characteristics of semiosis, but writing reveals these in a particular manner that exposes it. Here, in his work of grammatology in 1967, Derrida introduced the method he called deconstruction. Derrida himself said that theorists and philosophers have long had fears and apprehensions about writing, so they always translate writing into speaking. This is because writing is distinctive, as its inscription of durable signs exists independently of the author's experience, unlike speaking, except for electronic recording of speech, which is different. But without electronic recording of statements, the writing of signs is done in a distinctive way of information transfer. As a result, the author is always absent. This means that if a person attempts to write sentences on a piece of paper and publish it to last for thousands of years, there is no doubt that there will be readers. But at that time, the author is certainly deceased. Here, the meaning will remain, or some of them, despite the author's disappearance. This is what the deconstructionists mean by every author is a dead author. This means that the moment you write something, you no longer have control over it because it is already a public sign. It will be interpreted by readers in how they want to interpret it. And what the author wants to mean or clarify is irrelevant because what matters is what is written. In connection with this, philosophers typically think of writing as derivative or copied from speaking, because speaking seems to give signs their presence where the speaker and the listener have direct contact with each other. Here, the speaker articulates signs with literal breath of life. It is related to phonocentrism, or the term phonocentrism, which refers to Derrida's term describing the privilege of speech over writing. This describes that Western philosophers have long and always wanted to interpret signs through the idea of speech, because speaking is more comfortable as it has a closer relationship with life, consciousness, and the experience of the speaker compared to writing. Here emerged the famous and intricate term of Derrida, spelled difference but pronounced as difference. This time Derrida used the word difference with an E, or the letter E, and made the substitution of the letter E as letter A, where ons instead of ens. However, although their spelling is different, they sound the same, where the letter A is still pronounced as letter E. Here the point is, Derrida created a word, différence or difference, a word that literally does not exist in the French dictionary, but its distinctiveness is noticeable only in writing and not in speech. Derrida states here that the endless polysemic differences begged by signs, which, according to him, we provisionally gave the word difference or différence the similarity without being identical. If you want to say what is the basis of all, for Derrida, this attempt is meaningless, or investigating the constitution of the entire world is meaningless. Nevertheless, in this question, what is all, his answer is, all is made up of differences. And that's it. In addition, Western intellectuals, theorists, and philosophers over the past 200 years have tried to control the meaning of words. Here, Derrida used the term logocentrism as the dominant method of the entire history of Western intellectual tradition, where logocentrism refers to the presuppositions of signs of a direct or immediate relationship to a thing or content or the transcendental signified. Therefore, the aim of theory and philosophy is to set meanings, and to do this, it resorts to writing resulting in the loss of control over meaning. Therefore, writing seems dangerous for writers, theorists, and philosophers, because it only exacerbates the differences, so the determined control of theorists between sign and the same speaker and the referred object, which for Derrida is impossible to achieve this control. In connection with this, Derrida's use of the term deconstruction serves a particular role, where deconstruction refers to Derrida's method in critically reading logocentric text. It is a philosophical approach that seeks to examine the meaning of words, signifying that a word, statement of a letter, or speech has a direct, immediate, and privileged relationship to one object in the world, or the transcendental signified. This attempt, undertaken by intellectuals over 2,500 years, is a major mistake and should not be done, according to Derrida. Therefore, Derrida's deconstruction is his method of taking any book or any piece of writing and dismantling its contents. In this method, Derrida takes any text to identify its terms and major distinctions, searching for marginal distinctions within the text to reveal that the entire text itself is inherently flawed. This means that the primary dichotomies and distinctions made within the text itself have no stability or significance. One part is placed against another, where two things are compared. A is different from B. According to Derrida's analysis, B contains its A, and it cannot be understood without its opposition or difference, and vice versa. For example, the binary opposition of appearance to reality and mind to body, or ideal to empirical, and light to darkness. Here, deconstruction shows that the reference to terms is situated in hierarchical forms. For example, attempting to compare intellectuals between the binary opposition of reality and appearance, where intellectuals seek to understand reality and not just appearance, because reality is more dominant and privileged compared to appearance. This is a hierarchical distinction for Derrida. Here, Derrida shows through deconstruction that the devalued or marginalized term, appearance, is actually crucial in researching and understanding the term privilege as reality. As a result, Derrida corrects the logical independence or dependent meaning of the privileged term. Here, the privileged term, which is reality, actually presupposes the demoted or marginalized term, appearance, pulling the rope where it implies that the intended message of both terms is meaningless without the existence of their opposition. In connection with this, Derrida's works are known to be extremely difficult and brutally hard to understand. Many critics say that this is just his way of opposing his writing, but in fact, he doesn't really say anything. Nevertheless, Derrida's unique writing style is a result of his recognition and question, how can you write if you accept that writing is lying? Here, Derrida's extraordinary method of writing is a result of his personal awareness that all uses of science are dissimulative to carry out repression in the game of science, but it needs to be said through science, making it difficult to execute, resulting in his intricate direction of his writing or text. However, Derrida acknowledges that we have no escape from the language of logocentrism. There is no escape. This means that there is no way to stop our hearts from suppressing meanings or our attachment of terms to the transcendental signified, or our privileging of certain signs. We have no escape from this, and we will always do this in the future. However, if so, what is the point of Derrida's writing? It is nothing but playing with logocentric texts to give ourselves a limited degree of freedom. This means to loosen the grip of the image or text on our minds.